SQV or SSV or PSSV. These are the same thing. It's,
Okay.
you know, this report's titled SQV, so that's the way we're going to keep it for our CRO. But
Okay.
they're usually called SSV
Okay.
for site selection visit or
Okay.
PSSV for pre-study selection visit.
Okay.
This is why people are confused in this industry. There's like
So
10
many.
acronyms that mean the same thing. And there's probably other ones too that
Wow.
I'm not remembering right now, but these are the common ones.
Okay.
Okay, so that's probably, as a CRA, that's probably your easiest visit you're gonna do.
Okay.
You don't even need to really know the protocol to do it. I've done SSVs where I don't know the protocol as a CRA. And that's because if you have the protocol slides, you can refer to them when someone asks you a question.
Okay.
Most CRAs don't really know the protocol at this visit. Some do, but most don't. If they've done enough visits, like for the same study, they'll know it.
What to expect. Okay.
Yeah. So, but as a site owner, because that's what you're trying to accomplish.
Yes.
This is probably your most important visit for you.
Okay.
And it's the one that's going to make you the most nervous. Because once you get selected, like you know the process, it's SSV, and then it's, what's the next one after this?
That's the site initiation visit.
Yep, that's the SIV. But at this point, once you get the SIV, you already have the study.
Okay.
So the pressure's off, really. Like, all the pressure for the site is at the SSV.
SSV, okay.
At the SIV, there's no more pressure anymore.
Because you're already in.
You're in, yeah. I mean, the pressure is now to get all the regulatory documents and all the trainings in place so that you can start screening. So after SIV, you can start screening, theoretically.
Okay.
Or, you could be like one of my other sites, and not be ready at the SIV. So then I didn't give them the okay to start screening. Because they were missing training, they were missing GCP,
Oh wow.
they didn't even have a coordinator in place.
Oh wow.
I did the entire SIV with the PI
Wow.
at my last SIV, and they're not ready to screen. Still, that was a month ago. They're still not ready to screen.
So my question is the SQV, SSV, PSSUV, that one comes first. So
But what comes prior, that's a good question. So what comes prior to the SSV? There are no visits, but what comes prior to this? What triggers a site selection visit? As a site owner, you should know that.
you have to apply and
Right, you gotta
say your
apply.
interest in the study.
Yep. So that's business development, right?
Yes.
Biz dev. So as a site owner, this is super important. You can do biz dev a number of ways, right? You can go on clinicaltrials.gov. I'll just put ct.gov, but it's clinicaltrials.gov.
So basically you need to know what you want first.
Yeah.
What you want to go into.
Like what kind of studies?
Okay.
Yeah. There's search filters on there. I have a 1 hour video on this where I'm like on the computer showing how to do it.
Yes, it's very, because I went there last night and I'm not sure what I'm looking for to know.
Yeah.
You see a lot of studies.
So you want to check not yet recruiting or recruiting?
Recruiting, I saw recruiting.
Yeah. But you can check. There's active, not yet recruiting. There's recruiting. There's active, not recruiting.
Not recruiting, yeah,
It's been a long time since I did it.
I saw active, not recruiting.
Yeah,
I saw
and then
that.
there's closed. You don't care about closed. You don't care about active. You care about active not recruiting because it means that it hasn't started yet.
Okay.
Or it could mean it's already stopped, but it's still ongoing.
Okay, so active recruiting means you can still get into the study.
Yeah, so clinicaltrials.gov is meant for patients.
Okay.
It's not meant for business owners.
Okay, now
It's a government. The NIH owns it, actually. No, not the NIH. The FDA actually took over the CT.gov. So it's meant to be for patients to find studies.
Okay.
And they use it, but not really, because clinical research, there's a huge awareness problem. And so not enough patients are using it. But it's meant for patients.
Okay.
Now, for business owners,
mm-hmm.
business owners probably use it more than patients, sadly.
For what benefits?
For the patients?
No, for the business owner.
To find out what studies are going on.
So if you find out what's going on in your area and you're interested in that study, then what's the next step?
So the next step, so you go on ct.gov, you look for either not yet recruiting or active recruiting. Okay. So you know that those studies are ongoing. Now chances are, like 99% of studies, 90% of studies are behind on enrollment.
Oh.
So that means, as a business owner, you know that when you're reaching out to these sponsors,
Yes.
they probably are behind on enrollment. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to accept you. Sometimes they just don't want to add new sites. But if you reach out to 100, chances are 1 or 2 are going to consider you. So it's just a numbers game. Like, you find it, then if you're lucky, you find the study director, and sometimes they have their phone number on
I
there.
saw some numbers.
Sometimes they have the phone number, sometimes they don't, or an email. Now sometimes the phone number is their cell phone number. It's really good. And I actually taught students who want to be CRAs how to use this to find jobs. It works. I've done it live, like on video. Like, if you do it enough, you will get a job. The problem is people don't want to do this because they're afraid of rejection. You know how it is. I mean, you're a business owner. But if you do it enough, like someone asked me yesterday, what's so frustrating about business development? What's the most frustrating part? And I told them that everything is frustrating. You get told no 99% of the time. I mean, that's, there's no way you can make that number better. You're going to get told no more than yes.
So generally for me, so I call the study director.
Email probably is better, but you could...
And tell them that I'm a site owner. And if they're interested, are they recruiting sites?
If they need new sites, then you got to figure out how to send the email. So you want to email the study director, and by this point, you absolutely have to have a website.
Okay.
Especially if it's on email, because you want to include your website in your email. Okay. So
they can check you out.
Yeah, I mean, it's 2018. 10 years ago maybe they would have. Even then they did. When I started in research in 2005, we actually didn't get a website until the next year. But that was considered like kind of a big deal to have a website then. Now it's like
it's a necessity now.
Yeah, like it's so easy to do. You can get one on Squarespace. You can design it yourself. Some people hire me to do it. I'll do it for $800 and unlimited, proficient. But Squarespace is like what I use also, and it's very easy. I teach you how to maintain it if you hire me for that. But you can do it yourself too.
So your fee is $800.
Yeah. Like, to make it look good, I know what I'm doing. It takes me like 4 hours for a website. If you don't know what you're doing, it's going to take you like a few days. So some people would just rather pay me to do it. And then I have staff that does it. It still takes like 3-4 hours to do.
Okay, so now
So you need a website. Yeah, so then when you email, right? Now it's important what you put in the email. I like to put like 3 paragraphs.
Okay.
Because the common mistake is like people want to write too much, or they write too little. Usually it's they write too much. They're overthinking it. And there's there's no,
So what is needed in the body of the email? What is the essential that has to be in there?
yeah, 3 paragraphs. So the first one is, who are you? You like, hi, my name is, so my name is Dan Sfera. I'm from Global Clinical Trials in Irvine. My PI is Dr. Kellogg. You figure out which PI you're applying for.
For that study.
Right? Because if you have many PIs, you got to look at the indication of what you're looking at and which PI makes the most sense for you to apply for that
For
study.
that study.
Okay, so I put out, my name is Dan. I'm from company XYZ. My PI is G.I. Joe. Whoever your PI's name is. And then we're interested in your diabetes study or your cancer study or whatever it is, right? That's paragraph 1. They want to, you should tell them who you are.
Okay.
The next paragraph is previous experience in that indication, either for the PI or for you, whoever has more, or the site. Or if you don't have any, then what I would do here, some people lie and say that they have experience even if they don't. And I'm not judging. Maybe I've done that in the past too. I don't know. Well, I do know. I have lied in emails in the past. But when I was starting, sometimes you have to.
You
but
have to.
I don't think lying is the way. I was young when I was lying. I think, I don't know if I would still lie. I mean, you got to do what you got to do to get your first study. But what I recommend sites do now, if they don't have experience, is put what you're good at for that study. So if it's an asthma study and your doctor has a bunch of asthma patients, put down numbers, how many asthma patients, and then break it down further. This percentage are on this therapy, this percentage are on this therapy, and whatever, you can have 4 or 5 of these, so that they see that you know what you're talking about. Okay? If you don't have research experience, then you shouldn't mention anything about that. You should just go with numbers.
Number of patients, okay.
But try to get your PI or you involved in studies through someone else, as a sub-I or as a coordinator. You have experience already doing this stuff. So you have experience now. And you can leverage that on your email. My name is so-and-so and I work with this doctor and I've done these studies in the past. Hopefully it's one of the studies you worked on is the one you're applying for, but if not, then you have to go with this strategy. But how many patients in your database, the percentage. That's what I would put in the second paragraph. Either PI's experience and your site metrics. Site metrics. So let's say you're not research naive and you've done studies, but maybe not many, right? You put your site metrics, how many studies you've done, either for that indication, or if you only have a few studies, then your previous studies, how many you've randomized, how many you've screened, what was your screen fail rate, those kind of metrics. And hopefully they're good. People embellish their numbers all the time. And then in your third, you want to have another link to your website, your phone number, how they can contact you, and who they should send the CDA to. That's the confidentiality disclosure agreement. So that's the first thing. After you get all this and you send out 100 of these emails, because it's going to take 100 to get maybe anywhere from 1 to 10 CDAs. Sometimes 0. I've never seen more than 10 for 100 emails. I've seen 0. Yeah, you could get 0 too. But usually, with this strategy and no follow-up, which I recommend you follow up. With no follow-up, you should get 1 to 10 CDAs. Or, no, I take that back, not CDAs. You should get 1 to 10 replies. Okay. Sometimes you get 0 replies. Let's say you get 10 replies. Okay. Most likely 7 will say they're not seeking new sites now. but they will keep your information for future studies. What that tells you is you need to follow up with these
Okay.
people like in 3 months.
Mm.
So in 3 months you will follow up. Okay. And what I like to use to keep track of all this is HubSpot. I use this thing called a HubSpot. It's free. But if you pay for it, I use the free version still, but we're about to switch to Salesforce.
Okay.
Yeah, I use the free version. The reason I haven't upgraded to paid is because it's been doing good for me so far. But we're about to switch to Salesforce soon.
HubSpot, what is that?
HubSpot is what's called a CRM, customer retention management tool. I don't know what CRM stands for, but it's basically a database where you put all your leads.
Okay.
And then you can segment them from a lead to a lead that you want to follow up within 3 months, a lead you want to follow up within 3 days, a lead you want to follow up within a year. And it will automate, like it will remind you when to follow up with who.
Oh,
But you have to be organized and put everything in.
everything in.
Because it's only as good as you're updating it.
Putting it in.
With my HubSpot, I'll be honest with you, I'm like a month behind now on, I have them all saved in my email.
So it's your to-do list, and it's a reminder for your to-do list.
It's more than a to-do list because it's for contacts. It's
Okay.
just for contacts. So like you'll have a name, phone, email, organization, and then a place you could put notes.
Okay.
You know, when I talked to this guy from Janssen about this asthma study on April 19th, 2018, this is what we discussed. Follow up in, and then you can trigger, you can set it to remind
To
you
remind, okay.
whenever you want. In a year, in 6 days, in 63 days,
Wow.
in 6 hours.
Wow, that's good to have. Okay.
Yeah, and it's free. It's the best part about it.
Okay.
Now, like I said, you have to maintain it. I'm behind. I was looking for
So
an
do you go
assistant.
to like search engine and look it up? Or how do
Yeah,
you?
HubSpot, yeah.
Okay, just
HubSpot.com.
put it on search. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm behind on mine, and we're about to switch, and we're actually gonna have people manage it now.
Okay.
But it's on my to-do list to go in there and update it for the last month. I might even be more than a month behind, like maybe a month and a half behind now.
Wow. Okay. That's a good thing to have.
Yeah, because without that, how do you know? You know, you're gonna if you're
Forget.
reaching
Get
out to
busy.
100 people,
Mhm.
right? First of all, if you want to really be good, when you're sending out 100 emails in 1 week, you should really put all of them in here. And then you put notes on who replied and who didn't. I'm not even doing that. I don't know what Julie's doing. She's our biz dev lady. I don't know her process.
My other question now.
Yeah,
So for us that have services, client services with you,
yeah,
so when I see something that I'm interested in,
yeah.
do I forward it to you? Or how does that work?
No, I would recommend you reach out.
Okay.
We will reach out to the ones that
That's
you
your-
haven't reached out to.
Okay.
And if we both reach out to the same one, it's okay. They'll just
So
see it
and then
twice.
once they start giving me positive responses, then I will tell you that okay, I've reached out to
Yeah.
this person and
Yeah,
here's where we are right now.
like
And
they'll
you can
usually
take it up.
reply. Yeah, they'll reply.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go back to this, like 10 people will respond. But, okay, if you really want to do it right, the 100 emails you send out, you should put all those people in your HubSpot.
Okay.
I've never done that. I've started putting people in on the ones that reply,
Respond. Okay.
right? But you could do it that way. It's probably better to do it that way.
Okay.
But I just do it on who responds, okay? So I'll put those 10 in there. 7 will say they're not seeking sites right now, but they'll keep your information for future trials, which is a nice way of them telling you they're not interested. Okay, but you should put those in HubSpot to follow up in like 3 months,
Okay.
maybe 6 months, whatever, anywhere from 3 to 6.
Okay.
2 will probably say, will ask you for like more information,
Okay.
which is good. Then you get a reply back, and then 1 will send you a CDA.
Wow.
Okay, and so obviously you put all of them in your HubSpot, but the one and then the two that ask you for follow-up, you figure out what they want, or in that case, we would jump in and help you with that.
Okay.
One will send you a CDA, okay? So now you send the CDA to them. Do this within like 1 to 3 days.
Okay.
Don't let it sit in your inbox forever because they will just move on if you
To the
don't
next
get it.
person, okay. So once they send you the CDA, you sign it up, do whatever needs to
Yeah.
happen and send it back to them?
Sometimes it requires a PI signature, but
Okay,
usually it doesn't.
okay,
But some sponsors require a PI signature.
okay.
Once they get that, they will send you a feasibility survey.
Okay,
Okay? Feasibility survey. And we do this for our clients too. Like we'll actually do the survey for you. But it's usually 10 pages. It's like either SurveyMonkey online survey, or they'll send you like actual Word document and you send it back. They'll ask you who you are. It's very similar to this SQV report we did today.
okay,
But it's probably not that detailed. But it's very similar to this.
okay,
And they'll ask you, it'll be more focused around projections of
okay.
patients.
Okay.
And then treatment, what's the current standard of treatment that your PI uses for this indication?
Okay.
Okay. Once they do that, and they like your
Your response?
responses,
Mhm.
they can either, or they don't like your responses.
What do
right?
you call that? They'll send you the sense, what do you call it?
The feasibility survey?
Feasibility, okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Now, you either won't hear back from them, or you will within, I mean, I've seen as long as 1 year
Wow.
they'll get back, but usually it's between 1 to 3 months you'll hear back.
okay,
Now, during that time, during that 3-month period, you should be following up like once every 2 weeks.
okay.
Right, so
With the
back
contact
to the
person.
follow-up, yeah.
Okay,
Follow up, say, hey, where are we in the process? Are other sites, maybe they're a long time away from the site initiation visit. Maybe you're just very early and they have to wait for all the other site selection visits.
okay,
But if it's an ongoing study, maybe you're an add-on site and they want you right away.
okay.
But you want to follow up to see where you stand, okay? Or you won't hear back from them at all, which you should follow up with them also.
Okay,
You just want information at this point. You want to know where you stand. If they like your responses and the timing's right, they'll email you to schedule a site selection visit. Or they'll call you, but usually now it's email. They'll email the coordinator or whoever you put as the site contact on the
Okay.
feasibility survey to do a site selection visit. And there's a whole art to doing the feasibility surveys, which we go over in the Site Owner Academy. That's like a 1 hour of just that, right? So then they'll do the SSV. So that's the entire, like this is a lot of work to get one SSV.
mm-hmm.
So it's understandable why people are nervous when they
when
when they have
one.
their SSV,
Yeah,
right? Like
Wow.
our clients we have a lot of research naive clients, and their first SSV, they're so nervous and they're calling us like a few days before, asking questions the same questions over and over. It's because they're nervous, right?
Mhm.
But really, you shouldn't be nervous if you know and understand what the monitor is looking at, which is why I had you do that today,
yes, okay,
because that's really what they're going to be asking you.
Mm.
And the monitor is not there to be a detective. They just want to get their report done, and they will. There's a place there where they can recommend.
I saw that,
But ultimately, it boils down to the sponsor. So I've had cases where the monitor has recommended against us, and we still got the study, and I've had cases where the monitor recommended for us and we didn't get it.
wow,
So it's not really, I mean, you're supposed to give a recommendation, but I think it's more of a formality.
okay,
I think the PM really is the one, and the sponsor are ultimately the ones that decide which sites to use. And sometimes it's not the site's fault. They just, maybe the sponsor has a better site that they like better in the same city
okay,
or within a close proximity, and They don't want 2 sites in that area.
Okay.
It could be a number of things, right? Or maybe the other site is like a key opinion leader, and they're not as good, but the name of the PI is good for the like the sponsor likes the brand name of the doctor. So at the SSV, which you did today, okay, they're supposed to go over the protocol synopsis.
Yes, okay.
And by the way, before you get the feasibility, once you sign the CDA, I forgot to add, they will send you a synopsis of the protocol.
Okay.
Because without that, you can't really fill out the feasibility survey properly.
Yeah. Okay.
So they give you like 12-page condensed version of the protocol.
Okay.
Okay, usually it's slides. So first thing the monitor will do with the PI is probably go over the protocol synopsis. They go through the study objective and design. Okay. They will go through the schedule of assessments. You know what the schedule of assessments is?
Yes. What is supposed to happen at each time
At each
during
visit.
the study?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's like the cheat sheet for if you don't know anything about the protocol. You just look at that and you won't make too many mistakes.
Okay.
They go through the inclusion-exclusion criteria. You go through the enrollment, randomization process, investigational product. You know, is it an infusion? Is it an oral pill? Is it an injection? They go through the IP, how to administer it. Is someone blinded?
So all this thing happens after the CDA has taken place?
Yeah, all this, they're going to review all this at the site selection visit.
Okay.
All of this.
Okay.
They go through, and whether it's by phone, increasingly now these SSVs are by phone,
Okay.
but still the majority of them are in person.
Okay.
But more and more now are by phone.
Okay. So they'll have to go through the protocol process, what is expected at each stage with you.
The entire process.
Okay.
So, okay. So at the SSV, you should have your coordinator there. Your PI should stop by. They'll want anywhere from 5 to 60 minutes with a PI. 60 is on the high end. Really, it's like 30 minutes with the PI on average that the CRA would want the PI's time to go over pretty much these things, like the synopsis, the inclusion-exclusion criteria, the PI's obligations. Do you know anything about that?
What they're expected to do at the study, during the study time.
So who's responsible for the trial?
The
at
PI.
the site? Yep.
The PI.
Nobody else. He or she can delegate things to as many people as they want, but ultimately the entire responsibility is on one person. And
So in a situation where you have a PI and a sub, it's ultimately the PI.
It's the PI.
So if
like the one we did today, I noticed you put both of them as PI.
I changed it to one of the sub.
Good.
Yeah.
I changed it to.
Yeah.
Yeah, there can only be one PI.
Wazinski is the sub. I changed it on my own. Yeah.
Good, yeah. Yeah, there can only be one. So,
PI.
Well, there is such a thing as co-PI, but I've never seen that, honestly. But I've heard that happens sometimes.
Okay.
But I have yet to see it.
So at least the PI and the coordinator is expected to be at this SSV.
Yes. Yes.
Call or visit. Okay.
Yes. If
So
the
the
PI is not
PI
available, they could call and talk to the monitor later.
Okay. And they should have at least between 30 minutes and an hour for that visit or that call.
For the PI, yeah.
Okay.
A lot of that depends on the monitor personality. You know, some monitors, they just want to review the synopsis and ask the PI if they have any questions, and they'll relay any medical questions to their medical monitor.
Okay.
But some CRAs want to maximize as much time of the PI as they can, so it depends on the CRA.
But at this stage,
style.
really, you don't really have much except for the understanding of the PI of the study.
And the obligations the responsibilities.
What they're supposed to, so
That needs to be documented. That's why they put that in there.
Okay,
You're supposed to remind the PI of their obligations as a PI,
okay.
right? Most of them already know that,
Mm-hmm.
but you're supposed to remind them.
Okay.
So after they review the study documents, they're going to talk about the EDC. They're going to talk about the site. Does the site use paper records or EMRs? Right? Paper versus EMR. Paper records. So what's the difference between source document and medical history?
Source document is the where you directly put in the information about the patient, where you first register it.
Mm-hmm.
The medical record is past record that you can go and pull up from the patient's past medical history.
Right.
That's my understanding.
Yep. So source.
But medical record can also be a source record.
Yeah, medical record is a source.
Record, yeah.
But when people say source, they're referring to everything that's source data for that study, and that includes mostly includes the source documentation for the study visits.
Okay.
But it also includes medical history. And so paper records or EMRs, those are still source. Those are part of the source.
EMR.
Electronic medical records.
Okay.
Those are just medical history of the patient. Most studies still use paper source. Even if the clinic uses EMRs for medical history,
Mm-hmm.
the clinic will just print those out and put them in the file.
Okay.
That's called a certified copy.
Okay.
So if you use EMR, that's great. The monitor will ask...
One of the clinics that I have, that's why they use EMR.
Yeah. So if you use EMR, the CRA will ask you at the visit, how will the monitor get access to it? And you have different options to answer.
Okay.
But which one would you say? Like if
Okay.
I'm asking you, how am I going to access the EMRs at your site?
2 ways you can do. When you are around, we can print it out for you, or I can give you access to logging in
Yeah.
to get it.
Right, but you don't want to give them the option because it shows that you don't have a process.
Oh, okay.
So you want to pick one.
I have to pick one.
And you just tell them this is how we do it here.
But if you're over the phone, then that means I have to email it to them. Is that acceptable because of HIPAA?
You mean for remote monitoring visits?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
They will have something like interlinks
Okay.
that is
They
HIPAA
can-
compliant,
Okay.
and then you can upload the.
all over there.
Yeah, you'll never email medical
Okay.
records. If you do, they have to be de-identified. Like
Okay.
Sharpie, erase
Record
all the
names.
identifying info.
Okay. So
But very
basically when
important
they
is-
ask me,
They ask you at every single site selection visit,
wow, okay,
how do we
access the
access
record.
your records? You're right, those are the two options, but you shouldn't tell them that
One
they
of
have
them.
the choice, because it shows that you don't have a process.
So what do I tell them then?
You pick one that's easiest for you guys, you put that in your SOP, and then that's what you tell them.
We'll grant them access to the record
Yeah.
while they're there. Okay.
What I do is I tell them, we give you certified copies. So what a certified copy is you print it, and then the PI signs and dates that it's the authentic, it's identical to what's in the
What is
EMR.
in- Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
But I know sites that give the monitor access to their EMRs. It's just, again, it
It
depends
saves
on the...
time.
Yeah, and you know what? Your PI's private practice may have its own policy.
Yeah,
I know some sites
Yeah,
where
that's true.
they don't allow to do that,
that's true.
right? So certified copy is the safe answer, really.
Okay.
And you're right, those are the two options, but you don't want to give them both options because it shows that you're new.
Okay, so if you're doing, it depends on the PI you're working with. If you want to do the certified copies, that means that you have to print it out, and in most cases, that means that you have to get hold of the PI to sign all the pages.
Yeah.
So if you have a PI that's too busy to do all that, your
That's
best
not
bet is just to tell them to go into the system and look at it.
Yeah, but if you have a PI that's too busy to do that, they're probably too busy to meet
To
with the
all that
monitors.
things,
They're
yeah.
probably too busy to do a bunch of stuff. So you're going to be in trouble eventually.
Okay. So, okay.
So you either need to have that conversation with the PI,
Mhm.
like, hey, in research, like, I'm going to do all the work for you, but you do need to show
Sign
up
off.
and sign and meet with monitors
Mhm.
and have oversight of the patient safety.
Yeah. Okay.
And some can't even do that.
Mm.
Believe me, I know. Okay, so that's how you do that. So,
Okay.
see, even on the report, if you look at number 7,
Yeah, I saw that question.
does site use EMRs? If
Yeah.
yes, does the monitor have access? And then if yes, then you technically have to train the monitor on how to use that system.
Yeah.
So it's more work for you.
Okay.
Most practices prefer certified copies.
She said that they don't have EMR. Miss S.
That's good. She's smart.
So,
Yeah, Miss S is smart.
yeah,
Because she's a CRA, so she knows. It's better to do,
paper.
much better. Okay. Archiving records, they'll ask you about that. It's pretty simple. You're supposed to keep records for at least 5 years, for some sponsors 10 years after the
After the end of this study.
well, it's either at the end of the study or 5 years after the drug has been approved. You have to look in the contract for that.
Okay.
Every sponsor's a little different. The FDA and the European version of the FDA, the EMEA, they're different.
I have a question on
Japanese FDA, I don't even know what they're called, but there is
Wow.
like 20 years.
I have a question for site owners that have sites that are outside of their office.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go to the PI's clinic to do your study. The papers, where do you store it? Do you store it at the clinic or do you store it at your own office?
So, I would store it at the clinic.
Okay.
Because then you run into the issue of how are you transporting the documents, and who's doing it, and do you have a log, and what happens if you get in an accident and the window's open and it's windy and the papers go out the window. There's all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
They don't like that.
Okay.
I know sites that do that. Most sponsors prefer that the study is done at the PI's office.
Okay, and stays there, all the
Yeah.
documents.
Like the
stay
documents should be where the patients are
there.
being seen.
Okay.
Yeah. You can have satellite sites, but the records should stay where the patients are.
Seen. Okay.
But yeah, that's a good question. Now there's some studies where like you need to drive the patient to an ophthalmologist to get an assessment done. And you can bring the papers with you.
Well,
But that's the exception, not the rule. You can't like really build a study on that strategy. Because something will happen at some point. So they should be kept in where the patients are being seen.
okay.
So that's archiving. Patient recruitment is going to be a big one. They want to get their projections for, like we did today. How many sites do you think you can enroll? Now I know that they're good at breast and non-variant, but not gastric. So now when I go back to the sponsor with those numbers, now they know, okay, for their next site, they should probably get one with gastric. They have enough with breast, So every sponsor is going to look for different things. But that's why they ask these things at the site selection visit. And sites like to exaggerate on the feasibility survey and at the visit. But at the visit, you have one last opportunity to be more realistic.
So if you ask them how many patients that they think they might have for the study in their sites, if they tell you 10, because of course they have to move up the number.
Yeah.
If they tell you 10,
Yeah.
and you tell the sponsors, I think they have 10, and at the end of the day you see that it's 5 or 4.
Like if the site said they would enroll 10 and when the study's
Like
over they only enrolled 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's generally not good. Now it's horrible if it's 0. Okay. Sponsor will probably never work with you again if you say you're going to enroll 10 and you enrolled 0. If you said you enrolled 10 and you enrolled 10, it's great. If you said you enroll 15 and you enroll 10, it's not great.
So is it better to come up with a lower number and then exceed your
Yes.
number? You can exceed your number.
Yes.
Okay.
So let's say 2 sites both enroll 10 patients, but one site said they were going to enroll 20, and the other site said they were going to enroll 5. Well, they both enrolled 10, but the one that said 20 is going to be penalized when they look at the metrics, because they only 50% fulfilled their obligation, whereas the other site exceeded it.
Okay, that's my question. So in that case, the budget of the study, is it based on your estimation of how many number of clients you will come up with, or how does that work? Because the budget comes before.
Yeah, the budget will come after the SSV,
Yes.
but before the SIV. The budget will come with the regulatory documents, with the initial regulatory. The budget will come with that. So there's different kind of budget. There's studies that are capped, so each site is only allowed 10, or some sites are allowed to enroll 20. Each budget is going to specify in the contract, which is the CTA, how many patients you're agreeing to enroll. So for most sites it's like 10. 10 is like an easy number for a CTA. So most studies are competitive enrollment, meaning they have 30 sites and they want to get 300 patients. So each site should get 10, right? Now, some sites can get 20 and other sites will only get 4. That's competitive enrollment, okay? Once they reach 300, no matter what's on your CTA as a site, when that number's done,
can't recruit anymore.
Yeah, you're done. You're finished. Okay. So now, let's say you are one of those sites, and you have 10 patients on your contract, and you just screened patient number 10, and the study still needs 100 more subjects. You will renegotiate the contract with the sponsor and say, we would like to screen or to randomize an additional 10. And then they might tell you yes, or they might tell you, well, we're going to give you additional 5. Okay. Or they can say, no, we don't want any more from you. Maybe because your data is not good. They take all those into consideration. Now, some studies have unlimited enrollment, but it's not that common, where you don't have any cap. You just are
So your budget is based on the 10?
Yeah. But your budget's only based on just like the schedule of assessments. You know the schedule of assessments. They'll have visit 1. How is it? Visit 1, 2, 3. And then here you have all the assessments of what goes on each visit. Your budget is the same. So you'll have an Excel sheet. And now Chris does this. I used to negotiate budgets all the time. Now Chris does this. They will give you a price for each assessment. So like a physical exam's maybe 150 or maybe 400, depends on what you can negotiate, right? Maybe ECG is like $80. Maybe a psychiatric scale like a PANS is 120. Maybe an MRI for a breast cancer is 3,000, right? Those are variable costs. There's some assessments have higher variability cost than others. Like an informed consent, maybe $80.
Which is another question that comes to my mind now. For a breast cancer study, MRI typically is part of their general screening for their general checkup. So when the person is enrolled in a research and the patient already have a cancer and needs to have the MRI, and of course they're doing the MRI through the study, who pays for the MRI?
It depends. If it's part of their standard treatment, so if they were going to get that MRI even if they weren't doing a study, it's going to be the insurance. Cancer studies are different. Cancer study, you can actually bill the patient insurance for a lot of things because it's standard of treatment. But let's take cancer out of it because that's the exception.
High blood pressure.
Yeah, so for hypertension, like getting a labs drawn, that's all paid for by the sponsor. Any assessment for the study is paid for by the sponsor.
Okay.
Cancer's the one exception to that rule. So basically, this is like your budget, and you'll get a total for every visit.
So I'm sorry, Dan. Let me take you back.
Yeah.
So those blood work that is paid by the sponsor.
The labs, yeah.
So they will generate a bill. The clinic will generate a bill and send it to the sponsor, or do they send it to you as the site owner?
They will pay the lab, so the sponsor pays the lab. They'll usually
because they will have a lab that they will send it to anyway.
Yeah, they'll use like a central lab, like Covance.
Okay.
Central lab.
They'll have contract with them and they'll take care of it.
Yeah, central IRB.
Okay, I got it.
The sponsor pays those fees directly.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of new sites think that they have to pay the lab.
The lab, okay.
The only thing you have to pay is like something that's not central, like an MRI facility. Like we do a lot of Alzheimer's studies, so we have to send them to get MRIs done. Okay, well we're here in Orange County. A site in Chicago has to have their own MRI facility. They're not going to fly here. And so every site's going to have its own MRI facility.
Okay.
So the site has to pay for that, but then they get it reimbursed.
Okay.
So the site will have to invoice the sponsor for that.
Okay.
Those are the invoiceable items. But most of these items on the budget are not invoiced. Yeah, they'll just pay you based on the EDC activity.
Okay.
When the monitor verifies a visit, let's say visit 1, all the assessments add up to like $2,000. Visit 2, they add up to $2,700. Visit 3 is like $1,700. Visit 4 is $1,500, and so on, right? When the monitor comes in and source data verifies these visits,
that happened.
it triggers a payment.
Okay.
And you don't have to invoice for that.
Okay.
But you do have to invoice for pass-through costs, like MRIs, startup costs, pharmacy fees, transportation costs sometimes, like you'll pay a driver,
Okay.
You'll pay a driver to pick up a patient.
Okay, so when that happens, you use invoice.
You'll invoice, yeah.
Okay.
But you want to negotiate the contract so that you get those things invoiced.
Okay.
Some sites forget to put that in there, and the sponsor doesn't have to pay for that.
Wow. Okay.
You don't want to make those mistakes. You lose money.
Yeah.
Advertising is another one, right? The
Yes.
sponsor, you can negotiate the advertising budget in your contract.
Okay.
The sponsor will ask you for your invoice. Let's say you run a Facebook ad. First of all, it has to be IRB approved. You get that IRB approved. But you don't pay anything to the IRB. The sponsor pays for the IRB.
Okay.
But you get your ad approved, and then you can run the ad on Facebook. And Facebook will send you a receipt. You pay it, and then you send that to the sponsor for reimbursement.
Okay. All right.
So that's more on patient recruitment, PI and staff. I guess we went over the PI obligations. 1572. I mean, you know about that.
Yeah.
CV up to date, medical
1572.
license.
Can you explain it a little bit more? Let me make sure.
Yeah, it's that 3-page document. It basically it's basically the
Financial.
It's the contract the PI signs with the FDA.
Yeah.
So by signing the 1572, the PI acknowledges that they're aware that they're responsible for the entire conduct of the study at their site. So that they later, if the FDA finds an issue, and the PI says, well, that's not my responsibility, that was my coordinator's fault. Now the FDA has the 1572 and say, well, you signed this. You understand what this means.
And that is signed way before the SSV and all that. Once you, as a site owner.
No, not before the SSV. That comes with the regulatory packet.
Oh, okay.
After the SSV, before the SIV.
Before the SIV, okay.
That's the initial regulatory packet.
Okay.
Do you know what forms they'll send you?
No.
They'll send you 1572,
Yeah.
financial disclosure,
Mm-hmm.
initial IRB questionnaire.
Okay.
The IRB has to approve your site. Okay, they're gonna do a background check on the PI, make sure there's no black marks on the license.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay.
So that comes before the SIV.
Yeah, at the SIV, the monitor's making sure you have all this in place.
Okay, so that comes after the
SSV, yeah.
Okay.
In between the SSV and the SIV.
That's when the person gets the package.
Yeah, and the contract, and that's when you need to get IRB approval, and a whole bunch of other stuff, like protocol trainings, staff trainings, delegation of duties log,
Okay.
protocol training log. If those things are not done at the SIV, the monitor will train the staff on the protocol.
Okay.
Usually the monitor trains the staff on the protocol at the SIV. For a monitor, the SIV is probably a difficult visit. For the site, it's not. Like I said, there's no pressure at the SIV anymore.
Yeah.
You already got the study.
Mm-hmm.
The only way you'll lose a study at the SIV is if in between the SSV and the SIV you don't have anything done.
Mm.
Like nothing.
Wow.
No regulatory, no contract.
Mm.
First of all, they won't even come to your site until they get the initial packet back. So it's very rare to lose a study at a SIV. It almost never happens.
Okay.
That's the budget. GCP, okay, the PI and all the staff on the 1572 and the delegation of duties log. What do you know about the delegation of duties log?
I know that it's basically whoever that is doing what, we need to have their name and their signatures
Yeah.
in that log, explaining what their duties are
Mm-hmm.
and how they sign their name and how they write their name.
That's right. And initials too.
Initials.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And all those people on that log need their CVs, GCP training, IATA for the appropriate ones. They need protocol training. And then if they're sub-investigators, they need financial disclosure forms, and they need like relevant license.
Okay, so they all need the certifications, everybody in that log. Everybody in the
Certification,
log.
GCP.
So even for me in on the sites, the lab lady needs all that
Which lab lady?
because they have a lab. Assuming that one of my studies indicates that they have to do some blood drawing.
Oh, whoever draws the blood?
Yes.
Yeah.
So they need to have the GCP.
They need to be trained on the protocol. There's a protocol training log
Uh-huh.
in these rec binders,
Mhm.
and they need to have GCP training. If
Yeah.
you're on the delegation log, you need GCP and protocol training and a CV.
So I need to make sure I
At minimum. If they're LVN, you need their LVN license updated.
Wow. So they have to have I didn't think about that GCP thing.
Yeah,
So they have
but
to
there's
have that.
free, the link you used in the academy, that's you can give them that link.
Okay.
They can use those training links. IATA,
I
if
need
somebody's shipping the labs,
Mhm.
not drawing, but shipping,
Shipping. Mhm.
I would have the one who draws the labs do the IATA too.
Yeah.
Might as well.
Yeah. Okay.
CLIA waiver, you need a CLIA waiver.
Yeah, I have to talk to him.
That's another lab thing. That's not expensive. You either need a CLIA certificate or a CLIA waiver.
Okay.
Either one, they're both certificates. One is harder to get. For research, you just need the waiver.
Clear waiver. Okay.
Yeah, that's easier to get.
How do I get that?
Every state is different, and then there's a federal one too. So you just need to Google like how to get a CLIA waiver in Illinois. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not complicated. The hardest part is getting someone to acknowledge at that department that they received your application and your check. Here in California, they've
I
sat on
drive to
mine.
them.
You can do that. The
Oh.
one here is in Sacramento, so that's like an 8-hour drive. Not gonna do
Mine
that.
is 4 hours, so generally
There
I
you
just
go.
drive there and sit on them to give me what I need.
Yeah, one time they sat on mine for like 3 months,
Wow.
and because I'm busy, I'm doing other things. I didn't realize that they never sent one to us.
Wow.
So we didn't have a CLIA waiver.
So what is that CLIA waiver? What does it stand for?
It allows you to draw blood in your clinic. Basically, it's a certified lab for the state.
Okay, so the clinic, if they have it, am I covered, or I have to have one under my?
You have to have one for your clinic name, for your research.
Yeah. Okay.
So many of my clients, their research clinics are in the private practice of their PI. So their PI already has a CLIA waiver. But they have a CLIA waiver for their business.
Yes. So, but I have to have one for
the
my
monitor is
business.
going to want to see it in
my
the
business.
research clinic name.
Okay.
Whoever's on this contract, whatever company's on that contract, and whichever is the name on the 1572, that's what's important for a research perspective.
Okay.
Same for your premise liability. Okay, like your doctor's going to have medical malpractice.
Of course.
That's fine. You need to call that insurance provider and ask them if research is covered.
Okay.
Okay. If it's not, you have to ask them how much extra will it be.
Okay.
And then what I do is I just pay the difference to my PI.
Okay.
Every month I'll give him a check for the difference. Usually like $200 a month.
Okay.
Now, most of the time it's already covered by their malpractice. You just have to let them know that he's going to be doing research now.
Okay, so do I need to have my name add to it?
No, not to the malpractice.
Okay.
What you need is premise liability in the name of your clinic.
Premise liability.
Premise liability. So if someone comes in your clinic and trips...
If I'm using the PI's clinic.
I mean, they'll probably... So, if you're using the PI's clinic, he probably has that already.
Premise
so you can get away with it for a while.
Okay.
But you don't want a research patient to come in for a research study and then trip.
And then we'll figure
and then your PI's medical practice will find out their insurance was not going to want to pay it.
Okay. So I need to have a premise liability.
Yeah. They're going to say this patient was not here for
general checkup.
If they look into it that far, which they might.
Okay.
So you
they want to know why they are at the clinic. What is it for?
Yeah. So the premise liability.
Okay.
Yeah. They don't want to. They're in the business of not paying the.
Okay. So this premise liability, do I go and get my own, or do I need to attach myself to the PI's?
You'll go get your own.
Okay.
So, premise liability is different from malpractice.
Okay.
Premise liability, you want to get it in your LLC name or your corporation name.
Corporation. Okay.
I'm not a tax attorney. I've had both S Corp and LLC. They both have their advantages.
Yeah, I always have an S Corp. I don't know why.
I've had S Corp too. I actually like S Corp a little bit better because you're required to pay yourself a W-2 salary. So it's a way to reduce the pass-through cost. Because with LLC you get a pass-through tax. Whether you pay yourself a salary or not. You're actually an LLC member is not even supposed to be on a payroll really.
Oh wow.
You pay yourself like a dividend or you get a pass. You could put yourself on the payroll, but it counts towards your flow-through cost. Whereas on an S Corp, if you put yourself on the W-2 payroll, you can pay less in profit, even though it's taxed at a higher rate. This is where it gets complicated.
Yeah.
Because everyone's situation is a little different.
Wow.
So I've had both. They're both about the same. The LLCs, you don't have to keep up with their quarterly meetings. You know, with the S Corp, you're supposed to keep minutes of meetings.
Yeah.
With the LLC, you don't really need that. It's less formal.
They don't really ask you that much.
It's less formal.
Yeah.
And with the S Corp, you can sell shares to an investor. With the LLC, there's no shares.
Yeah.
It's a membership. There's no stock in the LLC.
Wow.
It's a different thing. I would go with the LLC, but that's what we've been going with lately.
Okay.
But I've had S Corp before.
Okay.
So Does this PI have sufficient time to conduct the study?
Yeah, they should have.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but this
That's
goes
the
back to
main
your question
question.
about the
signing
the medical
Yeah.
records. That only takes like 2
few
seconds.
seconds, yeah.
If they can't do that, the monitor is going to want to meet with them at least 30 minutes every visit.
Okay.
SSV, SIV, probably SIV the longest that they require the PI.
Yeah, okay.
Because they got to train them on the protocol.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever other assessments the PI is doing, they got to educate them on those things. Interim monitoring visit is the next visit. And that one, if the study's going smoothly, the CRA doesn't need much of the PI's time.
Okay.
But what do you know about PI oversight? So that's probably the most important topic in research right now.
PI oversight is basically they need to be involved in the research and make sure that everything, all these steps that happens during the research, that he or she is involved in it and signs off on it.
Yep. So how do you know as a monitor? I know you want to be a site owner, but try to think like a monitor now. If you were monitoring this study, how would you know if the PI has oversight?
By looking at the charts, first I need to check the progress note that they are writing to make sure they write and signed it on the day of the visit. And then the lab, I need to make sure that they are signing off on it. And the EKG, if there's an EKG, I want some signatures on it to indicate that they've seen it and read it.
That's right. That's right.
Oh.
That's called the PI footprint. So that's like every study, every source document leaves clues as to whether the PI. Now, what if the sub-I is an MD? Like in this study that we did the SSV for today, okay? Without mentioning their names, what if the sub-I does all the work? So when you go to do an interim monitoring visit, you don't notice the PI's name anywhere. The sub-I is signing everything, all labs, all progress notes, everything is done by the sub-I, who's an MD, just like the PI. Is that okay?
That's a good question.
I know, that's why I ask it.
If they're signing off on all the documents, they might as well be the PI. So if a PI is there and is nowhere to be found, it's missing in action. So it's not okay.
That's right. That's right. I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly correct. The FDA doesn't care if the PI and sub-I are equally qualified. The FDA doesn't care. They only care who signed that 1572.
Paper.
Because if something does happen,
It's the responsibility of that person.
not the sub-I, right? So as a CRA, what do you do? Let's say a few monitoring visits go by and you don't even see the PI. The sub-I is talking to you. The sub-I is signing
I have
everything.
to issue a query.
Not really query, but you want to put in your report for sure.
That's what's been going on.
Yeah, that you haven't been,
Able to.
typically you'll want to talk to the PI even on the phone if you can and find out, remind them of their obligations as a PI. Ask them if they still have time and are still willing to be the PI. And it's okay if the sub-I is signing everything, but the PI should review
And sign off on it.
that they're reviewing what the
is
sub-I is
happening.
doing. Even if it's at a later date, right? Because you don't want to backdate either. Let's say the sub-I does everything on April 19th, and on April 23rd the PI is in the office. A coordinator should bring him all the stuff, and they should go through everything to leave their footprint. Okay, maybe even write a note on top of what the sub-I wrote, like next to it.
Okay.
That would be enough. That's sufficient.
Review. You can be writing reviewed and signed.
Yeah.
Reviewed and signed. Okay.
The FDA is okay with that, and in reality, they're still not doing anything. But at least they're reviewing, and it's documented that they know what's going on in the study. Okay, because that's really the biggest thing is the FDA is concerned that the PI doesn't know what's going on, and if there's a SAE or it's a safety issue, that the PI has no clue what's going on. Right?
Okay.
That's really the biggest issue, and monitors are looking for that because the FDA is looking for that.
For that, okay.
Same thing with the coordinator. If the coordinator is doing everything, like coordinator's not allowed to review labs, even if they're a doctor from another country. We have a lot of coordinators that are MDs from like Vietnam or from, where was one? We had one from the Philippines. Okay, they're doctors. I mean,
But not here.
right.
Not in this country.
Right, you're not legally allowed to review labs in this country. And every state has their own requirements. Like some states, you have to have a license to draw blood. Others you don't. You just need to be supervised by someone and trained by someone who's watching, depending on the number of times you're drawing blood per month. Every state is different. Some states, the physician assistant is allowed to do a physical. In other states, they're not. In California, they are. But in some states, I'm pretty sure they're not. So, if you have a sub-I PA in different states, they may not be allowed to do the same things. As a monitor, you have to be aware of that. As a site owner, you've got to be aware of that too. Are the facilities adequate to perform procedures? So, the most important thing in the facility is the investigational product storage room.
And the lab.
And the lab, like where you're drawing the blood. In the case of a cancer study, it's where who's preparing the infusions. Is that the nurse? Is it a doctor? And then who's administrating the infusions? What's that process? How do you prevent temperature excursions? What happens in a temperature excursion? What do you do? How do you prevent and maintain restricted access to the IP? These are things they'll ask you at your site selection visit. The one thing they ask at
the IP, does it require that you have a double lock?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Double lock, restricted access, temperature controlled, either min-max or 24/7 monitoring. You should get the one that records 24/7, and it alerts you
if there's some
by text if there's an excursion. They have those systems that will do that.
Okay, I'll check with them. I know I've seen it. I saw it in the office, but I need to check with them. Okay.
So and we'll get back to excursions right now. But one thing they'll ask you at every SSV, every single one, is what's your process of consent?
Okay.
Just like we did today, right? And she knows because she's been asking that for years on the other side.
Other side.
But do you know how to answer that?
Yes. We have a secured room where we normally take the patients to, where the PI will explain the process and make sure that the patient answers his or her question to his or her satisfaction. Provide a confidential setting.
Private setting, yeah.
Private setting.
You don't need to worry about the secured room.
Okay.
It just needs to be a private room.
Private setting.
So it shouldn't be in a waiting room with other patients
You can
listening.
hear.
It should be in a private, like this one.
Okay.
You know, with the door closed.
Closed.
It could be open, but if you're gonna be formal, you should say, private room, and then your SOP should be exactly that.
Okay.
They're gonna ask you for your process of consent, for you to tell it to them, and then to email, just like we did today.
Okay.
Right? And did we get it? I don't know.
No,
if we got
I don't
it.
know if she sent to you.
I don't think so. Yeah, I didn't see it. So yeah, that's when they ask you for something, you should do it right away.
Okay.
And a SSV, because if the monitor needs that to finish their report, and you're not getting it, do you think you'll be recommended?
No.
Well, especially when they have tomorrow to go to another site, and then Monday another one, and now another.
You're making them
now they
behind.
forgot about you already.
That's true.
Right?
That's true. That is very true.
You gotta do it fast. Like, while they're there, do it. Well, when I do it, like when they ask me that, I'll get my computer. I already have it with me. I'll email it at that second.
She know you were calling her today.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just want to make sure that before they do all that, you have the time to prepare yourself and prepare what might be needed. So as they're asking you, you're sending it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Like when usually the SSVs are in person, but I'll have my laptop with me. And when they ask, I'll describe the SOP process, and then they'll say, can you email it?
Yeah, because the doctor's supposed to have sent it to her before today.
Yeah.
She's working with them.
Some monitors will ask you for the entire SOP. You don't have to do that. You can just send them the process of consent.
Okay.
Because if they ask you for the entire SOP, I usually say, well, I'll give you a table of contents and the entire consent process.
Okay.
Because we're not supposed to email our SOP, our entire SOP.
Okay.
But they'll try to be sneaky sometimes to get it.
Okay.
I don't know why. Different motivation. Some may want to start their own site and need a SOP. Others just they want to have it. I don't know. I've done it before, but someone told me not to do it. I hired a consultant years ago, and he said, don't do that. Just give them table of contents and the process of consent, and then when they're at the site, they can review the SOP.
Okay.
But you want to do it like that minute. They want to, CRAs are human. They want to go home, see their family. They don't want to wait for you before they can turn off their computer.
Yeah, that's true.
You're wasting their time. Emergency equipment, crash cart. How close are you to the nearest emergency room? Is the monitoring space adequate? Okay, those are things they'll always ask. They'll do a site tour if it's an in-person SSME. Then they look at the pharmacy and the investigational product. Does the site have a backup generator? They do. This one does have a backup generator.
She said they do. She said when we asked, she said yes because they're also close to the hospital.
Oh, okay.
She said they are opposite of the hospital and they have
I know many
facility.
sites that don't have one. You're not required to have one. It's just better if you do.
Okay,
San Bernardino has one.
In the pharmacy section, if you're in a clinic, clinics normally don't have pharmacy.
Right, but they'll call it, pharmacy will be anywhere that's your medication are stored. So in our site, it's in that room.
Oh, okay, where you can store the IP drugs.
Yeah,
okay, that's what they want to know.
Yeah,
okay.
Now some big clinics will have a pharmacy with a pharmacist. And it's actually, to run a study, it's better. The less people that are involved, the better. Because when you have too many people involved... You
have all the certifications and all the licenses and all that.
Not only that, but no one really takes full responsibility.
For what? Okay.
Because it's all...
So the area where you store the IP is your pharmacy?
Yeah.
For that site? Okay, that works.
Now, oncology clinics usually have like a formal pharmacy with a pharmacist preparing the infusion bags.
Yeah.
But for an outpatient clinic like this, you just have a room, like a double locked room with the IP.
Okay.
Central IRB, most sites use, unless you're a university or a hospital, you'll use a central IRB. And you don't need to pay, as a site, you don't pay any IRB fees. This is a one warning sign for anyone, like listening, watching. Whenever you get a study, I've seen this happen, and new site owners are unprepared for this scam, but it's a new one going out there. Someone will approach you about a study. Okay, they look legitimate. They'll email you, and you'll do the feasibility. You'll do all these things, right? They'll even send you like a protocol. Then they'll send you an IRB submission fee, and they'll say that you'll get it reimbursed when you get the contract. Well, guess what? You pay it, and you never hear from those people again.
Wow.
That's a scam.
Wow.
You never have to pay for an IRB if you're a site, unless it's your own IRB. Like if you're a hospital and you use a local IRB. But as a private clinic like this, you never have to pay for an IRB. Unless you want something, like some sites use a generic pre-screening form for all their studies. They just want a pre-screening form that's IRB approved. Then you go to an IRB and you get it approved, right? But that's legitimate. But when someone approaches you,
to to pay.
Yeah, I've seen
Wow.
people get conned into that.
Wow.
Bad. Never pay for anything. As a site, never pay for anyone telling you that this fee is to get this study. That's not the way it works. Right? The way we do it, DSCS, we do the biz dev for you, so we charge a monthly fee. But we're not telling you, give us like $8,000 and you'll get a study. That's not how it works. We even tell clients, you pay us $1,000 a month, you may not get a study for 3, 4, or 5 months, right? But you can stop that at any time. But not pay $8,000 and you'll get a study tomorrow. That's not the way it works. And I've seen that happen. Regulatory, we kind of talked about that. SOPs. They'll ask if the site's ever been audited by FDA, IRB. Monitoring frequency, we discussed that. We pretty much did
So if
everything
the
on
sites have been monitored, what does that mean? You mean is a problematic site? Does it put a red
Audited?
flag? Yeah, audited, I mean.
So you
Is
could be
that like
audited.
a red flag?
No, you could be audited at random by the sponsor. We've had sponsor audits, we've had IRB audits, we've had CRO audits. None of my sites that I own have had an FDA audit. But that's unusual for someone that's been doing this for 12 years. But I think it's because none of my clinics ever get that big. And when I expand, I just open a new clinic, like a new company with a new PI. So, but if I would have had like a one big clinic this entire 12 years I've been doing this, instead of having all these tiny clinics, if I just had one big clinic, we would have had FDA audits for sure. Because they'll audit like the high enrolling sites or the sites that do a lot of studies or the PIs that do a lot of studies.
Okay.
But if you have like a bunch of small clinics, you can probably avoid FDA audit, but sometimes it's at random. And if it's an important study and your site is like one of the high enrollers, you have an increased chance of getting audited. We've been high enroller like a few times. Usually we're number 3 or 4 as far as like 3rd or 4th place from all the sites. And that's kind of done on purpose. You don't want to be number 1. Unless you want to have an FDA audit, which I don't know anyone that wants to do that.
Wow.
But again,
So why was it part of this SSV?
Which one?
This audit question.
Oh, why is it part of it?
Yeah.
Because whenever you do get audited by FDA, they will give you a audit summary, and they'll give you they'll put out all the findings.
Okay.
So a 483 is like a warning letter. If there's significant findings, then they'll send out a 483.
Okay.
But they'll always have something. But the question is it enough to have a warning letter associated with it?
Okay.
The sponsors can audit too, and they're supposed to give you an audit summary or an audit review of findings. So if you have that, you're supposed to share it with the sponsor.
Okay.
Definitely the FDA ones you're supposed to share. It's debatable if another sponsor audited you, whether you should share that with another sponsor. That's debatable.
Okay.
But most sites use, like if they get audited, let's say by a sponsor or by the FDA, and they only had minor things, most sites use that as advertising, like as marketing.
Or they've been audited and nothing was found.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you've had a good experience, or if you had good results from the audit, that's why they ask you that.
Okay.
If you don't want to share, it means something bad happened. And if you do want to share, it means it's a good site. Because any site that's been through an FDA audit and got a good result out of it, meaning just minor findings, that's like you would use that as advertising. I would put that in my feasibility surveys, because they ask you that in your surveys too. That'd be like one of the first things I tell the monitor at the SSV, because it puts them at ease that you know what you're doing.
Okay.
The budget, They ask you, now the monitor doesn't know anything about the budget really. In my case, for the CRO I'm running, it's different. We're very small, so I know the budget. But normally, monitor doesn't know anything about the budget.
Okay.
They just ask if you have a budget in place.
Okay.
They don't even ask, shouldn't even ask to see it.
Okay.
Publication policy, yeah. So then they ask for the planning. I mean, that's it. Really, we didn't go over the IP excursion. Like, what would you do if there was a temperature excursion? What's the process?
You have to report it.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that the IP medication in there has not been affected.
Well, it has
back
been. Yeah.
and replace it.
Yeah, that's right. That's called quarantine. Quarantine the drug. Now, what happens if you didn't realize there was an excursion, but the monitor did, and you already dispensed the IP to some subjects?
Wow. Then you have to get it back and replace it.
Yeah, but should the patients continue in the study?
It depends on how. Wow, good question. No, they shouldn't, because the outcome it won't be the same anymore. If they have taken the medication that's really it's not good anymore,
So
it will affect the outcome.
who decides this?
The sponsor, you have to report it to the sponsor.
That's right. So it's the medical monitor, really. Now, the medical monitor can grant a waiver.
Okay.
You know, like let's say they'll look at, so whatever the range is, either that's the actual range that's written in the investigator brochure,
Okay.
or they made it stricter than it is to allow for excursions.
Okay.
Now, you don't know that as a site, so the sponsor will have to determine whether
What
those subjects can continue or not. In either case, it's a deviation still,
Yeah.
but you need to get a waiver if those subjects are to continue.
Okay. From the sponsor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, if they're not allowed to continue, they got to come in for an early termination visit, and they got to be called that day to stop taking the medication and to return it. But if they are allowed, then they just continue. But
So
you put it's
when
a
that,
deviation.
I hope it doesn't happen. When that happens, how does that affect the
It happens.
site owner?
I mean, that's a deviation. If you get too many and that's an IRB reportable deviation, because it affects patient safety.
Yeah.
So now the IRB can audit you. And when the IRB audits you, they audit any study that is their study. So if it's a big IRB and you have like 5 studies, I've had an IRB audit before.
So they have to audit all the other studies.
They're going to look at your PI and your site and look at any studies that you have, and they're going to audit all of them.
Wow.
I've had an IRB audit and it actually went well, but they could not go well also. I've had sponsor audits, I've had IRB audits, I've had CRO audits, but no FDA.
Wow.
Yeah, I hear those are intense.
Wow.
So that's it in a nutshell. What other questions do you have? But thanks for the report. Do you have another one? Updated one?
Yeah, I'll email that.
Alright, yeah, email that one. I'll delete this one. Don't save. I'll use the latest one and then I'll send it. I'll put my comments and send it to the sponsor.